The problem with anime is that it's becoming very expensive to make. And anime studios wanting to break even, they have to often sell their product to the West. But the issue with this is that they have to partner with a Western company, usually out of convenience. And these Western companies are stacked to the brim with social justice activists who blatantly claim that they are social justice activists. And as all social justice activists do, they want to sanitize the product that they are selling. They want to make it more appropriate to a Western market. Up till now, they had no access to the anime creators themselves. So what they did was to try and change the dubbed version of the anime. A great example would be in Dragon's Maid, where what's with that outfit? Everyone was always saying something to me, so I tried toning down the exposure. How is it? You should try changing your body next. In other words, this is just like a joke. It's just supposed to make people smile and laugh. And then this is in the original anime. Most people that I have heard never complained about the text. Now let's look at the dubbed version. What are you wearing that for? Oh, those pesky patriarchal societal demands were going on my nerves, so I changed clothes. Give it a week, they'll be begging you to change back. Now you can check for yourself to see that this is legit. Again, the Miss Kobayashi Dragon's Maid, episode 12. Watch the dub version and compare it to the sub version. But here you get to see how these ideological Muppets are injecting their own, I guess you can even call it fanfic, into the original anime. The original Japanese creators did not entail to have this a lecture on societal demands and patriarchy. But the people doing the dubs, they just shrugged. They said like, well, why do we have to maintain the original spirit? And they just simply ripped this text off and replaced it with whatever they want. And this is just one example out of many. I could make an entire 1-hour video going through anime after anime, and you're going to see the same things being done. Often, the dub has little and nothing to do with the original characters. Sometimes the story becomes incoherent because they are just completely replacing the dialogue lines. But recently, it seems to have gotten a lot worse because, as you see, Funimation joins the anime committee in order to censor anime in Japan. Basically, what this it means is that it's starting to turn into more of a Chinese system. You see, if you look at Western media, a lot of TV shows, in fact, almost all the TV shows that come up nowadays have LGBT representation. But there is very little LGBT representation to the point of non-existence when you look at Hollywood movies. The reason for this is that Hollywood wants to sell their movies in China, and as such they have to appeal to the Chinese censors. And the movie being censored is censored also in the West as well as in China. This is why you won't see a lot of gay characters within blockbuster Hollywood movies. And the same system is going to be applied to anime. In other words, Funimation is going to advise Japanese animators what they can and can't create if they want to work with the West. But, you know, you can always say that they don't have to work with Funimation. They can work with their competitors. Well, here lies the problem. The competitors for Funimation are becoming less and less. Because recently, Funimation has managed to buy CrunchyRoll for $1.2 billion. Meaning that Funimation is going to now have the overwhelming majority of the market. So if you're a Japanese creator and you want to sell your product to the West, you kind of have to work with Crunchyrolls and their morality. I personally think that we're going to see episodes censored as well as entire Japanese anime series being denied for a Western release. And this is going to be the norm by 2022, and we might even notice something like this happening in 2021. If you really are curious what type of animes people don't like, well, just look at the controversy. They don't seem to like Shield Hero, and they don't seem to like Goblin Slayer. They also complain a lot about Attack on Titan. Now, the reason these people complain is because that, according to their ideology, they believe that everything is political. In order to translate this, it means that either something is part of their ideology or it's against their ideology. There is no in between. There is no product that's just meant for entertainment. The way these ideologues want to force their ideology upon the world is to make it so that every person is surrounded by their ideology, that you can't escape it. Whether you're watching football or anime or playing video games, you need to be bombarded with social justice messages. Anything that is neutral or goes against the message of social justice needs to be destroyed. So, for example, if you have the narrative that all women are victims and men are the oppressors, you cannot have an anime like Legacy of the Shield Hero. Because within that anime, you have a villain as a character who is a very beautiful and gorgeous woman who is able to be very charismatic and manipulate the people around her, but she is also filled with every single negative stereotype that women have. She's very vain, she's very greedy, she is very manipulative, she accuses the main hero of rape falsely, and everyone around her believes her. And by having this type of character, by having this type of story, someone who watches the anime could start questioning things. He could start going, it's like, well, what if women are actually human beings with flaws, and they're not exactly the way social justice activists try to portray them to be? Sure, they're not physically as strong as men, and they have been oppressed throughout history, but maybe they are capable of having their own type of oppression. Just by having people ask these questions, and just by having people exposed to this narrative, is something very horrible that cannot be permitted by the activists. Another example would be Attack on Titan, which has a group of people that have been oppressing another group of people for generations, and then when the oppressors finally decide to fight back, they go a little overboard. So it again shows that the world is not black and white, but there are shades of gray. This gets people thinking. It gets people to start questioning narratives, and it gets people to start thinking for themselves, something that the social justice activists do not want. Now, it's very interesting because most of these companies are probably just out there to make money. They don't really care about the social justice activism. But it's the HR departments within these companies that are focused on empire building and just trying to hire the correct people with the correct mindset that are going to push the ideology forward rather than hiring the best people for the job. As such, I can only be highly concerned about the further centralization of anime. This means that Japanese creators will have fewer companies they can work with. In other words, if Funimation doesn't allow their anime to be shown in the West, or they are told to censor it, they don't have much of a choice. Now, a lot of people say, well, you can pirate the anime, and while that is true, you can probably get it for free, and there are plenty of groups that decide to do subs over dubs. The problem is that you are not supporting the actual creator. You are not supporting the developers from Japan, meaning that they will have less of an incentive to make animes that are not being purchased by Funimation. This is a problem, especially in a world that, as I have mentioned before, anime is getting more and more expensive. So the studios that want to keep afloat and survive, they kind of have to sell to the West, because their competitors are sure as hell going to do so. And with more money coming from the Western market, they will be able to actually improve their art style and the type of voice actors that they can hire, which is what one of the main reasons that people choose one anime over another. Hopefully I'm going to be wrong. Hopefully my predictions are going to be false, but unfortunately I see that all the roads lead to a China-like American system, where if you want to sell an anime in the United States, you're going to just have to deal with the Western censors that are an unelected and unaccountable body. Just like if you want to sell a movie in China, you have to go with the Chinese censors that are an unelected and unaccountable body. I guess the only difference is that in China, those people work for the government, while in the United States, they work for a greedy corporation. But the system is definitely becoming one that's highly centralized and, worst of all, highly ideological. At the end of the day, the issue is the same. If you as a consumer wants to see something or wants to buy a product, there's now going to be an entity between you and the person wanting to sell you the product, and that entity gets to decide if the product is safe for you, if you're allowed to view the piece of entertainment or not. It's a little bit sad, isn't it? But unfortunately, it is the way things are going. I don't see anything is going to change in the future, and this is definitely the trend for the next years to come. But let me know what you think in the comment section, and if you think I'm wrong, please tell me why. I am very excited to see it. I do believe that Funimation with time is going to either crush or just buy out its entire competition, and we might see one or maybe at most two companies that do what Funimation does. And any Japanese creator wanting to sell their product to the West is going to have to deal with these companies and their morality.